So, good morning. Let's have a little look what we're going to do. We're going to discuss everything about fine art. What is fine art photography? Is it like conceptual photography? Is it about, well, there's lots of things, different types of photography. Let's just have a look what we've got. I'm going to open this up as a starting point. I looked at you, got your photographs, and I've got Ron's and I've got Margaret. So we'll have a little look at those in a short while. But I was reading through and I've looked at loads of them. Ron's very kindly sent a link through to a fine art photographer, which he knows. And I went through and I went looking at, well, what is fine art photography? And I'm gonna show you some photographs in a minute. We can discuss these in depth, and we can look at Margaret's and what Ron sent a picture through. But the more you read about these statements, the more interesting it becomes. I can hear some TV in the background, can I?
I think that's mine.
Okay. So if you look on the screen, these are some of the statements I've gone through, either photographers or people that have work in fine art photography. The first one came up. Fine art photography is a style of photography created by an artist. So we're artists. Well, photographers are artists. And we've always said this from day one that, you know, artists say, well, you know, photographers are just false painters and false artists, but they're not, because we have to look at and find a picture within the world and produce it from the medium we have, which could be a building, it could be a body, so you could human art form. So it could be anything. So really, you know, we are artists as such. We're not painters. No, we're not that sort of level. Fine art photographs or photos are photographs created purely for their aesthetic and imaginative qualities. Fine art photographers create work that goes beyond merely capturing what is in front of the camera. Now, that's an interesting statement, because I have pulled up loads. I'm going to go through all these pictures in a minute. What people are saying, oh, I've got a fine art photo. And I'm going, no, I don't think that is. But then again, who are we to say it is or not? A next statement, fine art photography, also known as photography art or artistic photography, is photographic work created in line with the artist's vision. Now, this is what we're saying. And you'll see when we go through some of these photographs that predominantly a lot of them are black and white, and they're very high contrast. And they become an artistic interpretation of what the viewer, what you want the viewer to see, abstractly, or with the way that we view the light. But then again, isn't that all about photography? So let's go on a bit further. Fine artists use photography as their chosen medium for creative expression. And we've seen Margaret's panel she's doing, absolutely creative expression. So is Margaret's panel really just fine art? Fine art photographs express an innovative idea, emotion, or message which is unique to the artist. Now, that is a great statement, which is unique to the artist. Now, you know, we talk about all different types of music. Let's look at music. There's only so many notes in a musical scale, and yet we have millions of different songs that are never the same. And yet we've only got certain notes. Five is the five. FACE is your low notes, and every good boy deserves football. I can remember what the word, EFG, what it was. So, and yet we create all this wonderful music because we can take the notes and we can stretch them longer, shorter, join them with others, etc. So when we look at photography, we got the same thing. We've got an expressive range of luminosity ranges. We've got colors, we've got tones, we've got textures. And when we put them all together, they're all different. So, but the statement they made there is that it's unique to the artist. And there are certain people we know for their photographs because they have a style. So, I mean, we talk about Ansel Adams again. He had a style. We have look at Bresson and other people. Sorry, I'm a bit tired this morning, so I'm absolutely cream cracking. My brain's not working yet. And the interesting thing as well is they put on there, they do not serve a commercial purpose and they are opposite of documentary photography. Now, I beg to differ slightly on that because Ron sent through a link to this photographer and he claims fine art photography, but fine art photography is like the songs. There's fine art landscape photography. There's fine art boudoir photography. There's fine art architectural photography. And some are more documentary pictures. And certainly some of the street photography is quite documentary. However, if you notice when we come to do the street art, and we're going to run through this, what Ron sent through, you'll notice it's not about documenting the person, who it is and what you see of them. It's about their shape, their form, their interaction, their placement. They have no significant detail, but they are there. And I'm going to cheat here because I'm going to just go on to one of Margaret's. So my apologies, Margaret. I've wrecked your pictures. And I don't mind saying it because it's in the form of art. Now, Margaret put this picture through. And I thought, yeah, it's really good. And the question is it fine art? And I would say, in my opinion, no, it isn't. It's a photograph. However, if I change using some of the statements, I'm going to go through that list with you. What I see as fine art in here is this. And the people are, it's about the shapes, the people, the settings, the contrast, and the interaction as an art media. So my question is to you, is this fine art, as Margaret sent through, or is that fine art?
I didn't send it through as fine art.
Oh, sorry, it was, okay, examples of, sorry, Margaret, yeah. I mean, but your panel is, to me, is fine art. And to me, this has got all the strength in it. It just wants the top bit and post just coming back in and a bit on that pier. But I saw this and I thought, wowzer, this is definitely a punchy black and white picture. I can see it because it's got intrigue, it's got emotion. I'm looking at this going, what they're doing. You know, you see all the seaweed and where they are, and you start to ask questions. And the great thing about it is the guy on the left has got like a stick or a rake or whatever, and the guy on the right has got a spade. So in this story, on this picture, there is intrigue. What they're doing, what they're digging up. Are they welking? I don't know. So straight away, we've got some intent. So I'm going back to my other bit now, sorry. I'm just going to make this disappear a minute and go back to my pages. So yeah, it put unique to the artist, and I agree to some degree that it is unique to the artist. And I think we all have our styles, and I think after a while you get to see it. And it's a pity that Brian's dropped out, because I think the next 8 weeks or 9, whatever it is, left 10 weeks. I think what Brian and Ron did when we went to Lincoln was a great example of where you can take some of their pictures. And I've tried to contact Brian. I've rung him. I've sent messages. Not one, anything come back at all. So if anybody contacts him, just find out what's wrong with him. He might be ill. He might be off. And we don't know what's happened to him.
Gary, none of us are getting replies back from him at all.
No, nothing. Nothing.
No.
Absolutely nothing.
I'm in this term.
Have you spoke to him, Margaret?
Yeah.
Is that, I miss you. Yes.
He's got medical things going on.
Okay, that's right. Well, he only needs to drop a line saying, no, I won't be doing it. But anyway. Okay. And he put on there, do not serve a commercial person. There's a couple others. I like this one. This is from a professor and a photographer. Fine art photography is the intentional use of photography as your artistic medium of choice, used to further your conceptual idea. Now, this is where some of Margaret's pictures come in. She's got an intentional use with her photography on using an artistic medium with a camera to produce some of these images that we saw last week, which were first class. Yeah, so he's right in that bit. I'm going to do 2 more, one from Adobe, of all things, their Adobe team. And he's put, in fine art, the artist aims to demonstrate an idea a message or emotion through their work. But hold on a minute, that is photography anyway, to some degree, because sometimes a photograph is just a photograph, an image, a capture of time to show people I've been on holiday. So there is a difference. So it is a visual art principally produced for the aesthetic purposes and valued for its expressiveness. Therefore, fine art photography is a mode of photography where the creative expression takes center stage. Margaret, can I make a suggestion as well? Is she there?
She's answering a phone call at the moment, Gary.
Oh, well, I'll wait till she comes back because this is important to her. Because this will help her for a statement of intent for her panel. I'll wait till she comes back because it is important. Just talk amongst yourself. Does any of you people that's there today and those watching, Teresa, Judy, Louise, etc., does any of you believe that you produced any fine art photography?
I haven't really thought about it until it came up as a subject last week.
Yeah. I believe in your photographic journey, and I've seen some of Tony's. Look at that one last week of Tony's with his coloured images. Is that just a coloured photograph or is it an artistic image? I believe that a lot of you have produced some fine artwork, but none of you have grasped it and said, I like this style. And that, I think, is the difference. Some of the people we will see in a while, some of the images we'll see, they go out their way to produce images of this particular type, their style of images. And like Margaret's doing for a panel, she has an intent. She has a reason to produce this style of photography. The question is for you guys is, how do we achieve that? And this is what the post-production class is about. How can we achieve it? But I'll wait till Margaret comes back because it's important that I make a couple of statements here that will help her. So I'm sorry, but I do want her to be involved in this. Just put a bit of hand cream on my hands. So right. All this cement and lime and
takes the moisture out your hands.
Oh God, it's just unbelievable. I can't hold it.
Used to do that when we used to muck about with the soil and stuff like that.
Yeah, just takes it out of your hands, and even if you wear gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe, Ron, you've created some fine art stuff.
Well, we've probably all done it, but not realised it.
Correct. And I think when you look at the one, I think you did the one in Australia with that roadway, didn't you, Ron, with all the trees down? Was that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that to me was on literally hovering on the level on the edge of fine art. It was a photograph, but it had some artistic connection in there, something else. And I think when you get a picture like that, this goes back to what I was saying to Margaret when she sent this picture through. If you look at some of the, I wouldn't say collages, composite images, that's what I'm looking for. Some of the composite images that we look at and we can do would take some of your photographs into an artistic form. Now, I'm not saying that we have just overlay hundreds of textures and lights and light rays onto it. But when you look at some of the examples I'm going to show you, this is what some people are doing. And it's very interesting to see one guy in particular. All it is very, very high contrast silhouette photography. And that's his concept of fine art. So the means when I look at some of the photography, and I'm going to run a bit of a video as well, where the guy said, this is what I look for in a fine art photography. Here she comes back. Where you been? Sit down, behave yourself.
Sorry, I had to take that phone call.
It's okay. Ron's got his cane out and he's going to give you 5 swipes of the cane. Okay, I stopped because it was important. We got to a point where I feel this now involves you quite personally, in the sense that you are doing an A panel. And I've just got to pick up on my thread now. This page here, Mark, if you want, I'll send this to you. Or you can write it off the screen, whatever. But if you look at some of these statements, where's the one I just came to, and I was going to tell you. Okay, as a style, it differs from other form of photography, such as photorealism or photojournalism, because it is less about digitally documenting a subject and more about using digital devices as a tool to record an artistic vision. In other words, rather than images that display a moment as the camera sees it, as we just said, we're capturing it, it's a moment in time. Fine art photography represents what the artist sees. Bang, Margaret, statement of intent for your A panel.
Yeah.
I think there's some words in there you could use for your statement of intent, because it, like you say, and we always say, what is photography? It's just a snap in time. This is why artists say, oh, photographers, you know, they're not artists, they just press the button and off it goes. You didn't see that. You've done exactly what that statement said. You've actually used your digital device to record an artistic vision. In other words, rather than the images that display a moment as the camera sees it, it's what you see, what the artist sees. And that, to me, is could be part of your statement.
Yeah.
The last one was, fine art photography is photography created in line with the vision of the photography as an artist, using photography as a medium for expression, creative expression, which ties into the one before. The last one is off of Wikipedia. So I think there's some good statements in there on what fine art photography could be. As I was just saying, Margaret, is that some of the pictures we're going to see, and certainly what Ron sent a link through on, is that the guy does not use the human body as anything other than a silhouette. All about placement, or fitting him into a situation where you always say, Cartier-Bresson used to say, that decisive moment, I want to get him in, bang, there, wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to, there you go, got it. Because then he's creating this story, this image. So that's some of the statement. If you want, I'll send that through to you, Margaret.
Okay.
So I think that will help you on your statement, give you a good starting point.
Thank you.
So I'm going to show you this one now, and we're going to have an open discussion. Now, when we talk about fine art, what do we see as fine art? And if you look at some of these pictures on here, fine art is fine art. So we've got, is this fine art? On the right-hand side now. This is all, but this is just art to me. Is this fine art? It's just art to me. How do I define what is fine art in paintings? Is this fine art? I think all art with painting and things, this one here, hobby workspace, fine arts. What do we come, what, I mean, is this fine art? People who say Mona Lisa was a fine art, fantastic painting. But it's just this, how do you bring it in together as a genre and say, this is the thing. Now, this woman here, I've met many times, Paulina. I don't know whether I took you down to see her or not, I can't remember. But she loves doing these lovely portraits. And she does amazing portraiture. I went down, I can't remember, I think I took Judy, not Judy.
Teresa.
Julie, and I think I took Teresa, yes. And we went down as part of the MPA. And we looked at what she did. And the photograph, when you see it in the camera and what you see, are totally different, streets apart. I mean, that at the camera, this girl here does not have, but she's mastered the light. You see how she's got the light, the clavicles, the cheekbones, the Cupid's bow, everything, all this sort of thing. She's managed to get great hand placement. I weren't too sure about that hand, but I think it's okay. I'm okay. If some of our friends would see that in the MPA, they say, oh, you got to be careful with your hands. But I think she's done very good hand placement. I don't like that hand, but look at how we use her hands there. Now, so what I'm saying to you is on her work on here, she turns the photograph more into a soft, fine art photograph. Yeah. Some more than others. That to me is a great portrait. There is some of hers are very, very strong when it comes to fine art portrait. I think this one on the right is a great example. That to me is fine art photography. In portraiture, I'm not saying it's fine art photography and that is a definition of it. By no means. I mean, I love that picture. It's beautiful, isn't it? But she has a studio, she has a setup, and she brings the people in and bang, she takes the picture. But she waits for that moment. So if that's fine art on there, it's coming out of there, I then said, well, okay, that's fine art in painting. What's fine art in photography? And this is what we came up with. Now, this is where I think it'll make a very interesting discussion. And it's a pity we ain't got a full class today. So straight away, we've got, again, Gabrielina. She does fine art portraiture. And I think it's beautiful. Notice to me, though, that is very much a photograph. Yeah, but what is she's put there? What is it? So, okay, let's have a look what she states on fine art photography. Come on, give us on. Oh, it doesn't. It just buy a picture. So there's no statement with it, which is a shame. I was hoping she might give a statement on a picture. Is that fine art photography? No, it's a beautiful photograph. Now I start to come into these sort of things. Now, is this fine art photography? It's still a photograph. But now we're looking at taking the picture more than just a picture. And we start to making something into a little bit more than...
That's a
Don't forget
historic
that one
picture now, because
anymore,
that's
yeah,
not there anymore.
That one, yeah, it's took it down, isn't it? What an idiot. What a complete numpty. So now we're creating some images that make you think. I look at that and think, oh, yeah, okay. We look at this one with the sky. They've used the sky to add some drama. And then I start to look at this sort of thing. Is this fine art? I think that's beautiful. And that's a bird. Now,
Swan's head.
I think it's actually, well, yeah, I think it may be a swan. There's certainly a water bird of some nature. Same with the horse. Now, can you remember we did a couple of lessons where I showed you how to make things go dark? We did multiple layers and things suddenly became very, not surreal, but very contrasting. You remember that before we broke up for summer? And in Lightroom, we did multiple masking, and I think I took some of Ron's pictures and symmetries and whatever, and we made them look really, we controlled the light. We took over the image, and this is what I want to do this video in a minute, and I'm going to come back to these pictures. Because to me, fine art photography is about adding that little bit of extra something that your camera can't necessarily give you straight eye camera. I like this one, for example. This goes back to like what you're doing. Yeah. Similar shapes. Now, the difference is with your shapes is I mean, I love that, is that you're adding just parts of the shape. I missed that last one. That's the one I wanted. I clicked on it wrong. Like that one. That's what you're doing, Margaret, isn't it? You're looking at shapes, looking at angles, looking at textures, and looking at colours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Ron sent through a link to somebody, and I went back in my book, and the guy came and did a talk to us at Gamma. And this is how I think, you know, as photographers now, I know we're doing post-production, but we do need to discuss what we're going to do, because somewhere we've got to start off with it. So to me, fine art photography, if we're going to start tomorrow, let's say, right, this next week, Margaret and Ron and Tony and Roger, I want you all go out. We're going to produce some fine art photography. The the two main statements, I feel, from my discussions at Gamma, is you have to have a vision. Have a vision and how you want the light to work on your image. Now, that's mainly photography, but the vision is different. We're looking at a vision. And I always say to you is a vision on what we're going to do with the image in post-production. I mean, you see this zebra, for example. That zebra cannot have been taken, I would have thought, in a studio, or this giraffe without some intent to separate it from the background using the light. And I can guarantee you there's no way in this earth that the light on that giraffe could be produced in nature. Do you all agree?
Yeah.
Because if you look, there's a catch light in the eye there. They've done very well. I don't know if it'll let me zoom into this. I'll just see. Come on. Oh, it's called The Art of Animals. Even better. Come on, catch up. The website's a bit slow. But you can see from a fine art point of view, is using the animals. Oh, come on, I want to see more. This website's really slow. Oh, well, I'll come back to it. But you can see there is a catch light in the eye there, where they've added that. Or is that a flash come on there and a flash come from the top? Could he have taken it in an enclosure? I don't like that one because I think it's totally wrong. It's too bright. I don't like things where the subject is dark in the background. It just, to me, it just doesn't work. But that's my opinion. This is what photography and art's all about. But that one, look at the beautiful light on its back. And then you've got this light on the left cheek. And it's created incredible depth and form on the animal's head. But this one on here, this one, I think the background's been darkened off, unless they've taken it into a studio. I very much doubt it. But that, to me, is more art than that. That, to me, is a photograph. That, to me, is more art. It's about the colours, the content, what we're trying to want the viewer. Because the other statement we did in Gamma was, what do you want the viewer to see, which is not provided just by a photograph? So in the case of this one, we want the viewer to see all the shapes on this animal. But it's a photograph. However, if we add some artistic element to it, some softening, some post-production, we can get an image more like that. Oh, it'll let me zoom into it. Will it let me go into it? Let me just see if it'll open this one up. Now, look at, they put black and white, fine art photography, 1 of 3. Okay, there's 3 in there. There's another one there. I just want to see if he's got another one. But that one there, I can guarantee if we've got one of your pictures of your birds that you've taken, Ron, we could make a fine art image from it. Because it's all about control of light. We want the light. And this is why I want to run this video in a minute, because this guy hits the nail on the head when he talks about what he wants from an image. He is talking about, he has a vision. He wants to do something to this picture to make you think what he wants you to see. He wants you to look at this. He wants you to look at this detail. He wants you to look at these lines. And he can only do it by making them stand out and contrast it. And this is why I think a lot of the fine art stuff in black and white looks better than colour. Okay. So I like that one. Come out of that one. So I'm going to just look at, there's a couple more. You see, that to me, okay, it's fine art. It's fine art street photography, it's called it. And it is all about the shapes. And you wouldn't. Now, you see this background on here is obviously, I haven't got my pens up yet. I'll get my pens working in a minute. Is that background is just enough, but it's been darkened off. Really been darkened off. So it's all about these lines and the cyclist. And it's saying, I see this one, I don't necessarily agree it's fine art, but it's a very interesting photograph. Let's have another look at this one. This one is more of a photograph, but they're saying it's fine art. I don't necessarily. Would you say that's fine art?
Don't like.
I don't like it as a photo, let alone anything else.
Oh, I think there's an intrigue in there. I think there's a great, why is he there? Why is that? Is it a station? And I know what's happening is the trains are going by and it's left this image as it's like a shutter going by and somebody's walked in and made it blur as well. It's a very clever and sometimes very lucky shot. But
It look as though it's been caught between 2 carriages.
Yeah, well, I think you'll find that as the carriages are going by, that would every now and then be exposed. But, but I think it's been placed because if that was the case, then these lines between the cars would be blurred too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a quick shot, and then what they've done is they've put this on afterwards. I think that's been added. Okay, but that's his intention. Going back to what I said about figures, you don't necessarily need to see all the figure of the person. It's about how you portray the light. Now, these are great photographs, but are they fine art? And this is where it's like contemporary photography. Contemporary photography, I bought a book on it. Somebody come and do a talk on contemporary photography at the Photographic Museum in Bradford. And for 25 minutes, he was telling us about this one photograph. And I said, if you've got to tell me that you've got to spend 25 minutes to show me a picture that my child could take and throw away, as you're saying that it is contemporary photography at its best, if it takes 25 minutes, forget it. Why can't he tell the story itself? He said, that's the point of contemporary photography. It's intrigue. You have to ask the question. You have to be told what to look for. No, I disagree. And this is what I'm saying about fine art. Which of these are fine art? Where do we draw a line on fine art? I'm going to run a video now from this guy, and I thought he did pretty well because he actually told us about the intent he has. Let me just get it over here. And I'm going to play this video and let you watch it. Just tell me if the sound comes on, Ron.
Exposure, a medium exposure, and
Yeah, we're hearing it.
You can hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this guy does fine art, architectural photography. Ben Harvey, I've actually met the guy, actually. And he's right. When you're going to do fine art, you've got to have an intent. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to take some pictures and make them into fine art. He looks around just like landscape photography. Is it landscape fine art? They look for an image. They wait for the light. They want the light wherever possible. But they know they can't always get it. But we have a digital medium now with Lightroom, Photoshop, On1, all the rest, Topaz, that we can have control now electronically over the light.
Good Bill.
So that building on the left,
Must be the
this
post.
picture, I'll just put it to full screen, makes it easier. That picture alone on its own looks pretty good. It's a great building, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. But he drives around looking for such buildings because he knows that he has an intent. Let me just see if I can make this a little bit quality. It is on HD. He's looking for something he can work with. Now, if you was to take that picture as it stands there now, what do you think of that picture, Roger?
Do you know what it reminds me of?
What's that?
It looks like a fist giving you the middle finger.
Gosh. Well, that's your interpretation.
Well, that's what it looks like, isn't it?
Yeah. But as a photograph, it's a photograph, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
What about you, Tony? What do you think of that? I mean, is it a good choice of angle, good positioning? What about the building? What does it do?
I don't know. As a photo as a whole, it almost seems a bit messy with that stuff at the bottom right hand side. That
Yeah,
building.
exactly. So, as we say, when we shoot some of these pictures, we do know that, yeah, we can get rid of that or we can do that. So there is a post-production intention within here. And don't forget, we can only take what we see. Unlike painters, where they have a blank canvas and say, well, they won't paint that bush shelter on the right, but we can now do something about that. So we have our image in front of us. We have our building in front, which has got a lot of interest. Let me just see if I can get my pen to work. Or I'll get my mouse to work. 1 second. Annotate. Just getting all my tools up. Look at the dog. He's snoring away underneath me. Yeah, as a photograph, if we to look at this, I would say some of these we'd remove, wouldn't we? We'd probably get rid of this. This is a problem because if you notice when he took it, he must have took it at a slower shutter speed. And
Yeah, the wind
trees
is
gone blurred. And
wind has moved it, innit?
Yeah, there's a bit of blur in the trees there. So there's some elements of, and the light, it's a bit of a muted sky. It's not what you call an exciting sky as it stands. But to take that photograph, you have to take it based upon what you can at that time. And I remember when Margaret once said, I'm not going to Duxford, it's for boys and men. Boo. And then when she got there, she absolutely excelled. So much so that some of her top photographs, she's got 24, came from Duxford. Because why? Because she saw the shapes, the pattern, the structure, the textures. And what did you do, Margaret? You did some work on it in Photoshop or Lightroom, whatever, and produced almost, you could say, fine art photography. So you can only take what you can on that day, and then you start to expand your creativeness. And people say, "Oh, you're cheating." No, it's exactly what he said in that statement. You've used the photograph as a medium, and then you're going to apply some artistic interpretation to it to get you to do and see what I want you to see. So I'm going to run this video because it's quite interesting. And I think he actually says what we're talking about for you, Margaret, for your panel, what his intent is on this photograph. Okay. You all ready?
Yep.
Exposure, just so that you've got options of creating shadows, midtones and highlights. Okay, so you're going to have to play about with this.
So he said there that he took the photograph based upon post-production.
Yeah.
Because he said he actually took the photo to make sure he's got enough to do the shadows and the details. It might be that the black underneath the building on here, I'll destroy it up, might be a bit too dark. But he knows he's going to work with that because he wants that as part of the image. But he does need some of things in here, and he needs some work on some of the parts of the building. So he's already taken this photograph knowing that as a photograph, it's not quite very good. However, let's see what he can do with it when he starts to do his post-production on it.
To taste, but if we were to take the neutral as the mid-tone, the underexposed as the dark tone, and then the overexposed as your highlights, they're going to be your 3 exposures. What we have now is the original file, and then we've got 3 other layers. And what we're going to do is, like when I was using the pencil and paper earlier, you could start with a black piece of paper and paint in the highlights, or you could start with a white piece of paper and paint in the shadows. I'm going to start with the shadows.
So what he's done, he's gone into effects. I think you used to have, some of you used to have their software, didn't you? I think it's still available now. I've got a copy of it, still don't use it as much. But he's taken 3 images from using those presets. So he got his image into the pixels, silver pixel, I can't remember what it's called. I'm frustrated now. I know what the name of the software is and I can't remember.
NickFX.
NickFX, thank you. So yeah, in NickFX, Silver Effects Pro, that was it. So what he's done on the left-hand side, he says, here's your starting point. So we have, for example, here, a very much highlight one. Let me get a bit thicker pen so you can all see it. So this is a really highlighty one. Then he's got one that's covering all the highlights. And then he's got a middle one. So he's almost saying, I'm going to use these 3 pictures into one image using a bracketed exposure. So he could have actually taken his image with 3 separate pictures, brought it in and put them together as, I wouldn't say an HDR, but certainly as a bracketed shot. So he needed the shadows, he wanted the full range, more than what your camera can take on a single image. We get rid of those. And this is what we need to do as photographers, go out and do this.
If we were to take the neutral as the mid-tone, the underexposed as the dark tone, and then the overexposed as your highlights, they're going to be your 3 exposures. What we have now is the original file, and then we've got 3 other layers. And what we're going to do is, like when I was using the pencil and paper earlier, you could start with a black piece of paper and paint in the highlights, or you could start with a white piece of paper and paint in the shadows. I'm going to start with the shadows. You're going to create a layer mask, load the selection for the facade, go into the layer mask, and then what we're going to do is we are going to paint in highlights that sit underneath the shadows. Okay, I'll do that again.
And I'll just explain
so
what he's...
Here is the shadows layer with a layer.
So what he's doing there is, you can see what he's done. He created a selection, yeah?
Yeah.
So what he's saying is he wants to work on that facade, that front piece that's white, or it wants to stand out. So we're looking at contrast. That's the light part of it. And what he did, and he don't explain very clearly, he just doesn't say, oh, I do this, and blah, 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 and off he goes. He's got his image and he's got a mask. So on those selection there, he's going to paint on that mask using that selection with the marching ants. But what he failed to tell you was, over here, he's chosen the gradient tool.
Mhm.
So what he's doing is getting a gradient, which is a simple black and white. We all know black hides, white reveals, black conceals. And he's wiped it across his image. So here's going to be different to just here. That makes sense to you? You okay with that, Ron?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as the gradient goes across, it starts at full intent and it suddenly fades away until it goes away. So that's what he didn't explain. And I thought, well, it's a pity he didn't do that, because what he's doing is quite interesting. Okay, I'll go again. I'll just get my...
Yeah, I did wonder why he swiped from the right across to the left.
Right, well, I'm going to keep stopping to break it down.
And a selection, which is the facade, for an example. At the moment, this is a blank canvas. There's no particular direction of light. We're going to create that now using the gradient paint tool.
Yeah,
So
good, does
if
it
you
now?
Now drag from right to left, you're going to bring in the highlights layer, which sits below the shadows. And
So now that
contrast. That's the principle.
That makes sense now, doesn't it?
Mm.
Because, and I agree with him, because I think that the light does come from a particular direction. I think it's coming from the bottom right corner upwards. It's like a sunset, isn't it? The light's coming under the cloud. And what he's done with that is actually emphasized that the sun, or the end of the sun, or end of the daylight is coming across the front of the building, and it fades away as it goes down, which I think is brilliant.
Mm.
Behind manipulating this photograph. So you would then go into the next layer, this roof section here. Then you would bring in the highlights from, say, the top and the bottom. You've got to have a vision before you start editing about how you want the light
Exactly. How do you
fall
want
onto your
it to
building,
do?
what
Yes.
you want people to look at. In my final image, I chose that I wanted people to look at this detail here. So I highlighted that against the dark background. I also wanted people to look at this entrance, so I created a high contrast point there. I created this as a much darker section. If you have a look at the original here, you can see here I've created a light direction coming from the right-hand side. So you've got, it's brighter here, and then it gradually fades out to the shadows. I've made the left-hand side of the image darker because I didn't want people looking at these distractions. You'll see the armadillo in the background. There's more light on the right-hand side. I've darkened this. I've also darkened the sky so that it draws more attention to the building and to the facade. It's just a case of selections and then dragging through the layers behind. Okay, so now you've got a sweet looking image.
That I thought that was quite good, because he knew what he wanted. And I thought the thing that I liked about this is the fact that if you look at his original image there.
That's the principle.
Yeah. Where's that white piping around the door and the edge of the building?
Put in, isn't it?
Yeah, it's there. We can't really see it on the basic focus at the moment. He's got the underexposed image showing at the moment. And when you put the overexposed image, you can just catch sight of it. And wouldn't it be nice if you could, you know, as kids, we used to colour down. Don't go over the lines. And we used to do a picture and we put lines between each one. I was told off as a child, stop putting lines between your colour. I like it. And yet there's some people make millions out of images that I used to do as a kid, but was told not to do in class because you shouldn't put, you know, you paint and then you don't put lines between each colour. I used to love doing that. But anyway, interesting too, that actually comes out of this image is the use of a dramatic sky. Now that sky as it stood isn't that dramatic. However, if you notice, the sky is coming towards you. And I think if you look at that building, the tree on the left-hand side has been moving a bit. So it could be that the exposure on here is a couple of seconds, might be 5 or 10 seconds. And the reason why I think so is because this sky is moving. It's blurred, isn't it? Yeah. And it gives that surreal sort of, you know, artistic feel to the sky rather than just clouds. Because, yeah, just clouds, you all know clouds. What he has produced using a blurred sky is something that's a little bit more exciting. Let's go back to where he talks about here. So now look at the building. And he's found this icon, I'm going to call it piping. It's the edge of the building. This white line that's going all the way around. all the way around, and look at that round the door. So why is that image now become interesting? It's because you have a high contrast level, and it's picked out different things that score in contrast. Now, we talked about colour, and I think a lot of the fine art photography scores, I think, better than the conventional. I'm just going to just operate my chair a minute because it's hurting my back. That's it. Oh, that's better. That's better. Is that we all know that your brain sees black and white before colour. Your fight or flight reaction of your body works on an image. It can't work out the colours in a fraction of time. It's got to see an image and then act. And suddenly the adrenaline goes and you jump, you move around. And this is what black and white photography scores good, because your brain connects easily with it. Colours mean something to us. We all know we have meanings in colour, reds and what greens mean and what blues mean. But on this picture, what he's done is created contrasting zones. For example, I just love this bit, what he's created. How brilliant is this? It's like somebody's put a carpet outside, isn't it? And then this lines here, he's created the light coming this way, and he's emphasized the use of all these tiles. So you've got a progressive, then he's got this going in that direction. So we've got all these different shapes. He's picked out that building. Now that building was boring before, wasn't it? And now he's found contrast in it, blacks and whites. And he called it the Armadillo building. Now, the question is, why has he left this in?
Because it's poking in.
Exactly. It's like you're looking at it.
Pointing.
Yeah. It's something like on the edge, and it's contrasting. It's forcing you to look at the shape of this, but most of all, he's actually done this on the light as well. Now look at the sky. I'm going to just take some of these off. I'm going to just move it forward a bit. I always want to see, you'll see what I mean by what he's done with the sky.
Brighter here, and then it gradually fades out to the shadows. I've made the left-hand side of the image darker.
Now look at the sky. Now I once entered a photograph in a competition, and I thought, when I went to Italy, I kept looking at different buildings, and there were one in particular which weren't well known outside of Rome. And it was an old building that was done by rich people at the time. And there were big columns and that. And I wanted to emphasize, I just laid on my back, I thought, wow, look at this building. Such grandeur and that. And the sky, I thought, ooh, look at the sky. It's really odd. So it was getting late. I laid on my back and I think I set my camera about 10 seconds and just literally lay the camera down and took a picture. I kept putting bits of, I think, art in my bag, my camera bag, until I got the image I was looking for. And then set the self time and then and then 10 seconds and it stopped. And I looked up and I saw the sky, what it'd done, and it looked phenomenal. And because of the shape of the building, it looks like this building's coming out towards you and the sky follows suit, as if it's all about this grand. As you look up, everything goes out the picture. You go, wow. And it just added it. Now, I think this sky is perfect for this, because you've got all these pointy bits on this image up here. And then look at the lines of the sky. How amazing is that? Making you go, it's like a Hollywood scene. And then again, you've got all these other lines we've said down here. So everywhere you look, there's a part of an image that adds to the overall story, but they do not compete with each other. They work in synergy and harmony. Each element of that comes together as a picture. And I think what he said there answered my statement that we did in Gamma. And it's all about intent. In fact, he almost said, I won't say word perfect, but close to what we were saying. You got to have an intent. What are you going to do with this building? You see this building. You go out, you choose a building, and you take your picture of it. And this is some of the things I think you lot as photographers need to do soon. You need to start, you keep looking, we're looking at towns. Oh, should we go to Stamford? Or should we go to Hebden Bridge? Or should we go to York? I think you're right. But I think like this guy do, you want to go and find somewhere and thrash it. Literally go and find a building and thrash it. And there's great places in Lincoln. There's plenty of other places. There's good place. Birmingham, I keep telling you, get on the bloody train at Newark. You have to change at Beeston, but you literally get off and 10 minutes later, the next train picks you up. So it's a continuation, but it's not. And go down to the Bullring, there are some incredible shape buildings. You've seen the, I nearly said Debenhams. It is Debenhams, isn't it? The building they had with all the plates on the outside. You could spend all day just photographing that building. From every angle, everywhere you look, there's a different shape. And the architect that did it was brilliant because he made you look at the building, from a distance, you go, ugh. It's like a blobby building with this on. Then you get closer. And as the light goes round, the building changes. The shape of the way the textures on the building change. And it's exactly like he's done. He's found that doorway. And I can't think of his name. He lives up towards Tuxford, a white-haired guy. Can you remember him? Oh, I can't think of his name. But I took him with me. There was several of them, and he got some incredible pictures. He absolutely loved it. He hated the building at first, and then he spent literally an hour and a half just photographing, literally within the space of 50 meters. And he got some incredible images. And he said they're the best images he'd ever took. And something switched him on. And that's why I say it's a pity Brian here, because Brian and Ron came with some incredibly good images from Lincoln, which I feel, Ron, that you still got. We can look at fine art. And I think we all did the black and white day. Can you remember we all went to the cafe first off and that guy was drinking his beer at 8:30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and we walked around there. I said, you could only take 24 pictures. And you all started looking, 24 shots, oh my God. And then we found, and the first part of that day, in fact, Mike, oh, come on, I can see senior moments now.
Mike Cowart.
Mike Cowart came and he took the first 24 images and he had some brilliant shots. And I say brilliant. For him, they were brilliant. I'm not saying they were best, but they were brilliant for him. And then I said, you can take what you like. He took another 500 images of Lincoln. And I said to him, yeah, he was showing me the picture, but these are good. Okay. I hear what you say. And every time you're looking on the picture, yeah, there's something there, but they're all same. But the ones you took in the morning, you had intent, you looked, you got shapes, you got textures, you got the way the light, you got a wide angle lens, you made this statue look enormous and all. And yeah, in the afternoon, you just went snap. And I asked him a question, I think it was about a year on, when he was talking about going down to photograph his horses, the horses down on the Spanish coast or French coast. I can't remember where it was. I think it was in France, wasn't it?
It was in France, yeah.
Yeah. And he said, and I said, you know why you like those? Because you got the white and the blacks of the horses and the backgrounds are very clean and simple and splashing water. And that's what you saw first off in your Lincoln shots. Yeah. In the afternoon, you just took what you snap.
He used to go to the Camargue, didn't he?
That was it.
Right.
So
Cup of tea time, I think.
you want a cup of tea? And then we'll go press it a bit further. Then we're going to look at some of the images that you've sent and some of Margaret's, and we're going to talk about this. And then we're going to start to plan, because I think for next week, you've got to go and find a very simple structure. And we'll look at Margaret, because Margaret has already got images, and I think a lot of you have. And we want to break down the image and say, what can we do to pull this out as a photograph and make it fine art? And that's going to be our challenge. And I think it'll be an excellent challenge.
So it's an architectural one.
A week could be, well, I'm going to discuss this because you might say, well, actually, can I do this instead? Because, as we said, fine art, what is it? Is it fine art boudoir? Is it fine art landscape? Is it fine art architectural?
Unique to the artist.
Yes. So we'll all choose a sort. We'll all think of something. Because you might say, Mark say, well, I've got something in Newark. And you might say, well, I've got something at Ipswich I can tell you this weekend.
That's where we're going tomorrow.
Yeah. So, you all might have, and straight opposite, not being macabre and horrible, but opposite town is the graveyard. And there's some great structures in there.
I love the graveyard.
Yeah. And then Ron might turn around and say, well, I've got some from from Australia that I've got, and I've seen one or two of them, and he's got some great building shots. So we'll discuss this. Let's have a 10-minute break then for a cup of tea
Okie dokie.
and give yourself a chance to have a think and a talk, and we'll come back in a minute. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'll pause the recording. Remind me to, I'll put pause.